So now our repo is starting to look good, but of course there's not really much code in it. We only have a single index.js file with a dummy export of a component. What we actually want to do is we want to add spinners to the project. So if you go to loading.io, you're going to see that we have a bunch of different spinners here, and you can in fact pick up a color. So for example, a beige one like this. So let's say I wanted to add a spinner from this web page. I'm going to just copy the CSS for that spinner, and it looks like this one is called Ripple. So I'm just going to copy the code. I'm going to go back in here and I'll create a directory. I'm going to call it Ripple. I'll create a styles.css file. I'm going to paste in the CSS inside. I'm going to create a new component. Let's call it ripple.js. And so in here, we can just copy the code from index.js. We're going to call this one Ripple, and we'll export default Ripple like this. And now as far as the markup itself, let's go back in here, and we're just simply going to copy the div, and there's going to be a bunch of inner divs as well. So now the cool thing about Prettier is that as soon as I save the file, it's going to prettify all that code for us. So we don't actually have to change it ourselves. So that's pretty neat. Now going back, I'm going to add a few more. So let's say we're going to copy this one, and this one is called ring. So let's copy that. We'll create a new ring folder. So I'm going to put in styles.css. We're going to paste that in. I'll create a component called ring.js. And back in here, we're going to copy the markup once again. Same thing, we're just going to paste it in over here. And then from Ripple, I'm going to copy everything. So let's paste it in over here. Once again, the div, I'm just going to move it in here. And let's rename it to ring. And now for both of these components, I'm also going to add an index.js file. So let's do that. So what I want to do is I want to, let's say in this folder, I'm going to do an export default as Ripple from Ripple. So what this is going to do is it's going to import the default export from the Ripple file. So in effect, it will import the Ripple component, and then it's going to export it as a named export of Ripple. So let's save it. I'm going to do the same thing for ring. So let's add index.js in there too. In this case, we're going to export ring from ring.js. And finally, let's add one more. So I'm going to add this guy, which is ellipsis. So let's go back in here. Let's create a new directory, ellipsis. Hope I spelled that right. So let's create styles.css. So let's paste that in. So ellipsis.js. All right, so we can actually copy, let's see, everything from Ripple to ellipsis. So this will be ellipsis like that. And the markup will differ. So I'm just going to copy the markup like that. All right. And then for the index.js file, it's going to be the same thing. For this barrel file, we're just simply going to export ellipsis like that from ellipsis. All right, so once that's done, we're going to go to index.js, and we're actually going to export. We could export Ripple from Ripple, or we could also simply export everything from Ripple like this. Now I'll add a few more. So this one will be everything from ellipsis like that. And then the second one will be a ring. And of course, one important thing would be to also import the CSS files in every component. And so this one brings us to a CSS conundrum. So let me explain. There's several ways that we can set up CSS for our components. One way would be to simply pass a style prop. So what I mean by that is, for example, for the Ripple component, instead of passing in a class name, we could simply supply, let's say, a style property, and then we can pass in an object with things like a color, let's say red. We could pass some padding. You get the idea. This one is very, very simple to manage. So it's a simple JavaScript object, and you pass in the properties that refer to the CSS properties that you want to set. There's an issue with this approach though, because we're using quite a bit of advanced CSS as well. For example, for our spinners, we're also using things like keyframes. This is something that's unfortunately not supported by this style prop syntax. So this is a major disadvantage, and it basically means that we can't really use that approach. But besides the fact that it doesn't support advanced CSS, it also has the maximum specificity. So what I mean by that is the inline style, in fact, is very hard to overwrite. So let's say if we were to pass in this style property, and we were to also accept a custom class name as a prop, if you try to do something like that, you were to accept a class name as a prop, let's say from the consumer of the API, and you were to pass it into the component, there's a very good chance that it's not going to work because these styles will have the highest specificity. So the color, for example, specified in these styles will overwrite the color that is attached to the class name. And so this is what I mean by the highest specificity. It's because the styles object will overwrite everything. And if you do intend to overwrite it through a class name, you'll have to also use the important attribute in CSS. And so it's not the best option for those two reasons. But of course, there's some ups as well. So for example, we have very easy server-side rendering. We have a single import. If you remember, the project that I showed you in the very first video had two imports. So one for the component and one for the underlying CSS. And then the other advantage is that we don't have any extra build step to do. So we don't actually have to apply any transformations to the CSS files in our build process. So this was the style prop. This was inline CSS. Now let's talk about embedded CSS. So embedded CSS is all about the style tag. So what I mean by that is that in our component, so what we could do is we could put in, let's say, a fragment, or we could also use the Babel 7 shorthand syntax for fragments. So we can put in our div, and we can also supply a style tag like this. This way we would put in the CSS from styles.css file directly in the style tag. And so whatever CSS needs to be applied to the div tag is going to be contained within the style tag. So once again, it's a fairly simple enough solution as well. It also works very well with SSR, and it also allows us to have a single import, so we don't necessarily have to import the CSS as a separate file. It's already being imported as you import the component because it is part of the component in the end. And it also allows us to tree shake both JavaScript and the CSS. Now this point is going to come up later on. We're going to talk about it in more detail, but for the time being, let's look at the downsides. One of them is the risk of name collisions. So for example, in this case, we're using a class name for each spinner. So each spinner has its own class name depending on which variant it is. So there is a small chance that the styles for a Ripple component, for example, might be in conflict with whatever styles the integrator of the library already has in their project. So if their application already makes use of the class, those classes might be in clash. So again, we have to be mindful of the name collisions. And the other thing is that we're also going to have heavier bundles, unfortunately. And this point actually applies to inline CSS as well. But what I mean by that is that all of our styles are going to be bundled as part of the component. So that means that every single bundle that we produce, so for example, the CommonJS one, the ESM one, and the UMD one, will have its own copy of those styles. So the styles are going to be duplicated across the bundles, unfortunately, which is not such a big deal at the end of the day because much of the code in these bundles is duplicated either way. So this was embedded CSS. Let's talk about external CSS. So external CSS refers to external CSS files. So for example, something like styles.css. This was in fact the initial solution that I decided to go with for the demo project I showed you in the very beginning. So this one has very simple and easy server-side rendering. It also allows us for lighter bundles because the CSS is being extracted out of every bundle and it's being bundled into a single styles.css file. But there's of course a few downsides as well. So we have a risk of name collisions still because we are still using the same exact CSS classes as before. And we also don't get to benefit from tree shaking in CSS because at the end of the day, we're going to bundle all of our styles into a single styles.css file. So the integrator will have to import that style, whether they use a single spinner component or if they use 2 or 5, they will end up with the whole slew of classes for every single spinner. So the tree shaking becomes an issue in this case. And of course, the other downside is that we're going to have to import both the JavaScript bundle and also the CSS bundle as well. Now, the other solution that we can consider would be CSS modules. So in this case, with CSS modules, we're going to get unique class names. We're going to get a single import, and we also get to have tree shaking for both JavaScript and CSS. Now, JavaScript inherently because we have ES modules in one of our bundles, but CSS because the CSS that is associated with a specific component is going to be part of that component only. So let's say if you import the ellipsis component, you're actually only going to end up with the ellipsis styles and not the styles for any other component. And now for the downsides, unfortunately, it's very hard, if not impossible, to integrate CSS modules with SSR. I know of a specific package known as isomorphic CSS loader, I think, for Webpack. I'm not sure if there's anything like that for Rollup, unfortunately. So this might become an issue down the road if you decide to integrate the library that we're about to create as part of your server-side rendering application. So again, it creates difficulties with SSR. And then the other disadvantage is, of course, we get the heavier bundles because the CSS is now being duplicated across different files. The last option I'll mention is CSS in JS. So what that means is we can actually import an external library, like let's say emotion or styled components, and we can defer the styling responsibility to that library instead. But of course, the upsides is we get unique class names, we get a single import of our library, so you don't have to import the JavaScript and the CSS separately. We also get tree shaking out of the box for JavaScript and CSS, but the downside, of course, is we get much heavier bundles, and this will of course depend on what CSS and JS JS library you decide to go with. So for example, something like JSS will have a heavier penalty than something like the Linearia. But other than that, we have a high chance of extra setup in the API. So for example, if someone wants to use our library, they have to be aware of the specific CSS and JS approach or dependency that we're using in our module. So again, as I said before, I initially decided to go with the external CSS solution. So I decided to extract everything into an external styles.css file. So this way you would be able to import the CSS server side and inject it into your payload very easily. But on the front end, unfortunately, you would have to import the component of your interest. So let's say the ellipsis component, but you would also have to import the CSS as well. But now that I thought about it, I think the better solution would actually be to go with the embedded CSS. So what I think we're going to do is we're actually going to leave it off like that. I'm going to change the name of the variable to styles instead of CSS. And we're actually going to import styles from styles.css like that. And we're simply going to embed the styles as a string to the style tag. So now let's actually copy that pattern to all of the other components. And I'm going to explain how we're going to resolve that syntax in a second. So let's copy the style. We're going to put it into a fragment, save it. Once again, we're going to import styles.css, and we're going to do the same thing in ellipsis as well. So let's import it, and then we're going to put in the style tag after the fragments like that. So let's put it in. Let's move all of it inside the fragment. All right, so that should be good to go for now. And the last thing would be to resolve these CSS files, because right now, if we were to try to build it, I'll try npm run build, and this will of course fail because we don't really have any plugin to resolve this CSS. So one thing we can do is we can install rollup plugin string. So this one is fairly old, but nonetheless very stable. What this one allows us to do is to basically import the contents of a file as a string, and this way we can output it whichever way we prefer. So we're going to install that dependency. Let's go back to the terminal, npm install a dev dependency of rollup plugin string. Once again, you can probably see at this point that the rollup system is very similar to the one that's used in Webpack, except in Webpack you're using loaders to enable different kinds of functionalities, like let's say loading CSS files or Sass files or transforming any of your code, like let's say using Babel. In rollup, instead of loaders, we're using plugins. So it's a very, very similar system. It's just a different way to do it. Right, so we're going to import string from rollup plugin string. So let's copy that, put it in over here. And so we're going to include and pass in a pattern to match any CSS file. In this case, we're only targeting the ones in the source directory. But nonetheless, let's actually go back and try to do npm run build. And it looks like it succeeded. So now if we go back, let's check out the dist folder. As you can see, all of the styles are now being bundled as part of the JavaScript bundle. So in effect, what we've done is we've basically told rollup to treat CSS files as strings, which is not something you would do very commonly. Again, if you're using rollup to bundle an application, not a library, but an application, most of the time you'd be using a CSS plugin. So for example, rollup plugin post CSS or rollup plugin CSS only. And that way you would concatenate all of your CSS files into a single CSS bundle that you would import separately in your application. But in this case, because we're building a library, we're going to be actually treating CSS as strings. So just plain strings, we import them like that in every component. And then that variable becomes the variable that will hold all of the CSS in this file, styles.css. And we basically output that string into this style tag using JSX. Now going back to our rollup config file, if you remember a while back, we actually defined a property called external for every single output bundle. So what this is going to do is it's going to denote React as an external dependency. Now for our module, we also might want to set up a peer dependency of React. So in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a peer dependency section over here. So I'm going to add React. And now this is where we have to think about it. So one thing we could do is we can specify a specific version. So for example, this is going to lock it to 16.7.0. We could put in a caret, for example, in front of it. We could use the tilde symbol. Or if we were to target older versions of React, we could also put something like this. So we can specify greater than or equal sign of, let's say, React 15. So anything that's React 15 plus is going to be accepted by this module. So what pure dependency does is it basically allows us to verify that whoever is using the module that we are developing is also installing the React dependency. Now in this case, it's only React, but it might also be other dependencies as well, like React DOM, for example. So the pure dependencies section allows us to tell the integrator that they have to install the React dependency in order for this module to actually work. Because without React, you won't be able to use any of these components, right? So it only makes sense to add React as an external dependency, or in other words, a pure dependency. So now if someone installs our dependency without React, they're actually going to get a warning in the console. The warning is going to say that they're missing a pure dependency of React. And of course, if they have an older version of React, this will not work either, because this one is locked to React 15 or greater. And now this one actually reminds me of the BabelRC config as well, because we've set up a version of Node to 8. What we can do in package.json is we can also add another key. So in this case, we could add engines, and this one will allow us to target specific versions of Node. In this case, we can put Node more than or equal to 8, and this is also going to be in sync with our BabelRC configuration as well. So again, we're bundling for Node 8, so it only makes sense to specify that the engine must be Node 8 or greater. So in essence, this is going to match Node 8, 9, 10, 11, and so forth. So this is basically it for the build step. Now we have a functional build process in our project.